Sorry? I wasn't up here. I wasn't. Do you want to know what time they went out? Is that what you're asking? Oh. Okay, so. Well, right, but what time they go out? I wasn't up here. I didn't even see this. What time they went out?
If I let you hold the show.
Okay. 1:30. 1:40 to 2:70. Wow. Thanks, Vicki. At least someone supported around here. Right. Yeah.
Everyone should be in very shortly. They're in the hallway now. Just got the
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, if you see anybody, just try to get them as quick as you can. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. back on the record. State of Florida versus Adam Matos. The defendant is present with his attorney. State is here. Any reason we shouldn't return the verdict? Ben?
No.
State?
No.
All right. Please bring the jury back.
Everybody ready? So bring all your notes. You guys can leave that evidence in here, or bring your notes out. You can leave here if you want, but bring them out. Jury entering hearing report, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All jurors present, see Your Honor.
Thank you. Juror number 10, have you all reached a decision?
Yes, ma'am.
If you can hand the forms to my bailiff. All right. If the defendant will rise with his attorneys, and we'll publish the verdict.
Jury verdict for count 1. We, the jury, finds as follows as to Adam Matos in this case. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state of Florida has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following. Adam Matos was previously convicted of another capital felony. Yes. The first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. Reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, Section A, we, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant the possible sentence of death. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A outweigh the mitigating circumstances that were established. Yes. Having unanimously found that at least one aggravating factor has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a sentence of death, Section B, and that the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances, Section C, we, the jury, unanimously find that Adam Matos should be sentenced to death. No. If no, our vote to impose a sentence of life is 2-10. Dated this 21st day of November 2017 in Pasco County, Florida. Signed the foreperson, juror number 10. Jury verdict for count 2. We, the jury, finds as follows as to Adam Matos in this case. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state of Florida has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the existence of the following. Adam Matos was previously convicted of another capital felony. Yes. The first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. Reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, we, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant the possible sentence of death. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A outweigh the mitigating circumstances that were established. Yes. Having unanimously found that at least one aggravating factor has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a sentence of death in Section B, and that the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances in Section C, we, the jury, unanimously find that Adam Matos should be sentenced to death. No. If no, our vote to impose a sentence of death is 2-10. Dated this 21st day of November 2017 in Pasco County, Florida. Signed, the four-person juror number 10. Jury verdict for count 3. We, the jury, finds as follows as to Adam Matos in this case. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state of Florida has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following. Adam Matos was previously convicted of another capital felony. Yes. The first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. Reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, we, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant the possible sentence of death. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A outweigh the mitigating circumstances that were established. Yes. Having unanimously found that at least one aggravating factor has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a sentence of death in Section B, and that the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances in Section C, we, the jury, unanimously find that Adam Matos should be sentenced to death. No. If no, our vote to impose a sentence of life is 2-10. Dated this 21st day of November 2017 in Pasco County, Florida. Signed, the four-person juror number 10. Jury verdict for count 4. We, the jury, finds as follows as to Adam Matos in this case. We, the jury, unanimously find that the state of Florida has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following. Adam Matos was previously convicted of another capital felony. Yes. The first-degree murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. Yes. Reviewing the aggravating factors that we unanimously found to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, we, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant the possible sentence of death. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors that were proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A outweigh the mitigating circumstances that were established. Yes. Having unanimously found that at least one aggravating factor has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in Section A, that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a sentence of death in Section B, and that the aggravating factors outweigh the mitigating circumstances in Section C, we, the jury, unanimously find that Adam Matos should be sentenced to death. No. If no, our vote to impose a sentence of life is 1-11. Dated this 21st day of November 2017 in Pasco County, Florida. Signed, this four-person juror number 10.
Does the defense wish the jury poll?
No.
State, do you wish the jury poll?
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as we did in the first phase, the clerk is going to merely ask if what she read is in fact the verdict that you rendered. It's a yes or no answer. If there was anything wrong with it, it's no. If it's fine, exactly the way you believe it was, it's a yes. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Judge. Juror number 1, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 2, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 3, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 4, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 5, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 7, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is the verdict rendered your verdict?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Judge.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at this time, I wish to thank you for your time and attention and consideration in this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by you as jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occur in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon jurors for consideration in these types of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that your deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain your private affairs. as long as you wish those to be. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about your jury work. Although you are now at liberty to speak to anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with them, from the media, from the attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you individually to decide whether to preserve your privacy as jurors. All the rules about tweeting, texting, blogging, or talking about the case are now lifted, and again, it's up to you individually whether you wish to discuss the matter. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to take your jury badge off and go ahead and put it right in front of you or on your seat. We are going to move forward with sentencing in this matter this afternoon. I'm going to release you as jurors. You're more than welcome to stay in the back and watch the remaining of the proceedings, but you are not required to do so. I've taken up way more of your time than I would hope. I want to thank all of you for your careful time and consideration in this matter and following all the rules. Some of you I would like to thank even more for being here today. I know some of you all were not feeling well, but you still made it today, and I appreciate that. I know the families do too. And on that matter, you are excused as jurors at this time. With my thanks, and my bailiff has a certificate of appreciation. I also have your cell phones for you. You can now speak about this case or not. But thank you very much, and you are excused. Thank you very much. State the jury now returning 4 verdicts of murder in the first degree with a sentence of life in prison. Any objection to moving forward at sentencing at this time?
No, Judge.
Defense, any objection?
No.
All right. I believe there are some family members present that the state would wish to give victim impact at this time. Would you like to do that?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Do you know who you have to speak?
There are quite a few of them.
Okay. Mr. Brown, correct?
Mr. Richard Brown.
Mr. Richard Brown. Yes, sir. What would you like to tell me?
Well, I'd like to tell you about my family.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the Bible or Romeo and Juliet. I want to talk about the Brown family.
Okay.
Okay. So the Brown family, which consists of my mother, Patricia Brown, sitting in this courtroom, Marie Brown, the older sister, who is sitting in this courtroom, myself, who sits before you, or stands before you, and my little brother Roger, who unfortunately was sick and could not make it. But we are all here from New Jersey after over 3 years of living pain that only others that we hug and cry with could only understand. So, my name is Richard Brown, Greg's younger brother. Our mom, Patricia Brown, sitting there, squeezed 5 kids into a small house one day where we were children. These were the good old days for us. Most kids today wouldn't even hear of such a thing as squeezing 5 kids in one little house, but they have no idea what they missed out on. Greg was the second oldest after Marie. And it was the middle. I was the middle, followed by Mary Ann Brown and Roger Brown. As a child, in our family, I remember the small hallway in between two bedrooms. One for the girls, one for the boys. We were little kids. We were upstairs. My mother was downstairs. She was all alone. We had no father. We know poverty just like everyone. We drank that powdered milk. We had reduced lunches. We had all those things. We had no lavish lifestyle. As a child in our family, we had these two rooms, and going over the line was off limits. It could actually result in some serious hair pulling. Boys in one room, girls in the other. Our life is what we had. We had little, but one thing that we did have was we had each other. 5 children and a mother that we loved so much. Greg was the oldest boy and certainly helped to fill the role of our missing father. He showed me and my brother, Roger, the ropes, teaching us about mechanical work, teaching us about electrical work, and always demonstrating a strong work ethic. All of us kept care of each other, sisters and brothers, all united. We were a family of shared experiences and deep values. I remember our childhood as altar servers at St. Rose. He taught me how to make a flamethrower out of pledge polish, taste nasty sour wine, and trick us into ringing those communion bells at the wrong time. We were all comrades, but the only comrade that ever got caught was poor Greg at these little things. We did the normal sinister kid stuff, and my mom continued to bring us up 5 children on her own and did a great job keeping all of us on the straight and narrow path, instilling values that we maintain today. Greg later became the first cool kid with a car in our family. Instead of taking preference to drive his other cool friends around, his preference was to include even his little brother, 6 years younger, or 5 years, so that he could hang with the cool kids. Because that was Greg's kind of love for his sisters and brothers. Now that he had a car, he could work 2 jobs. One day, my little brother learned that during Christmas time, Greg used to use his own money to make sure that we had a good Christmas. He said to my mother, "Mom, Roger's only 8. He needs to have a good Christmas with real toys." Compassion and service to others was in our family's nature, and it was paramount to my mother. It was the most important thing, more than money, more than luxuries that we could never have. She would be the first one to volunteer her little army of kids to dig holes, break up concrete, cut your lawn, pick your dandelions, shovel snow. Nothing was off limits. The neighborhood was happy because the Brown kids would always help. The Brown family was always on standby to help without any question. Greg never forgot these values and continued to put people before himself. He had the softest heart of all of us. Greg, Maggie, and Megan were our family members. They were loved, and they had the same rights as any other human being to live, to love, and to feel loved by others. For over 3 years, our family has had to play through these murderous events in our heads over and over and over again. Nightmare after nightmare. Because the defendant systematically took all of this and their humanity away one at a time. Let me detail my nightmare for the court. Maggie, a strong woman with an attitude. They owned a farm. You better not be lazy around her farm. That was the first sentence that came to my mind when I wrote this. She was a hard worker, and she never had anything herself either. Her inner strength comes from an extensive line of experiences, hardships, and all the other things life throws at us during a lifetime like every other human being on this planet. At over 50, it was now her turn to enjoy some of her life and enjoy her grandchild. Once again, a monster decided on his own that Maggie did not deserve to live, although the defendant has had the full protections of the judicial system and now may live. That night, the defendant appointed himself the executioner of humans. Maggie never had a chance to defend herself against the monster from sneaking up behind her like a coward with a bam to the head with a hammer as hard as possible. Until her head was so smashed up, he ultimately revealed her brain matter. The defendant has said in his own testimony that he wanted to contain the blood and brains in a bag to lessen the cleanup. Nick. The defendant is responsible for the bludgeoning and destruction of a human face to the point of it becoming the unidentifiable remnants of what used to be a human. A human that had inherent right to live like all of us, to be happy in life, and maybe even have children of his own someday. Instead, the defendant made sure that this could never happen, as the hammer slowly pounded away at Nick's face until it was pulp, so that his mother, father, sister could not recognize him. This, to me, was one of the worst crimes against humanity I have ever seen in my 25 years of law enforcement. Megan. I can see Megan holding Tristan as the gun was aimed for her head to shoot her in the face in front of her son. I wonder how close that bullet came to that scared little boy's head. Was he spared because he could not talk as a witness? How many times did the defendant ignore her pleas not to kill her son? Isn't that how it really happened? Sure it is. Greg, with blood and brain matter on the defendant's hands, the killing spree is not over yet. The murderous rampage continues by hunting through the house to find Greg, feverishly trying to defend the people he loved the most, with the only thing that he owned: unloaded rifles stored high atop a shelf where they would be safe from his grandson away in a closet. In my nightmares, I see him trembling and shaking to find and load his rifles, his hands shaking so much he is hardly able to get a shell into his gun to defend his family. To this day, I can feel the helplessness and shock of these murders as they were unfolding right in front of him. Again, the defendant walks up behind Greg and Bang. Shot him right in the back, just about killing him as he slumped over and fell, facing Mr. Matos again. But, bang, shot him again to finish the job to make sure that he was lifeless. After all of this, it's time to open up a six-pack of beer, smoke a pack of cigarettes, and play video games, isn't it? Because finally, the house is quiet. After all, they're all dead. The next few days were spent cleaning the house, wrapping up, tying up, bagging up our relatives for their final resting place. So ingenious of the defendant to figure out how to load 4 lifeless human bodies into a vehicle with dollies and ropes and pulleys or whatever. And in the process, dropping them sometimes on the floor because the makeshift winch did not work correctly. So a new plan would have to be developed to figure out a new way to get them into the vehicle, all while whatever blood was left in their bodies seeped out of their bodies to add to the existing post-mortem smell already permeating the neighborhood. And finally, the defendant drove them to a dirt pile where they were dragged out of the vehicle one by one like human garbage. Dragging each one of them out of the van, systematically they were placed head to toe because you were even so lazy to even put a pile of dirt with a new shovel that you purchased on top of their bodies. Instead, animals feasted on our loved ones in 100-degree weather, allowing maggots to slowly live off whatever flesh was on their bodies until there was nothing left to even identify them. It was as if these bodies were a result of a war crime in Syria. It was yet another crime against humanity committed by Mr. Matos, and you almost got away with it. Right until the very end, the defendant purposely lied to the jurors hours before they were about to deliberate. But these lies were quickly thwarted once again. The defendant came to the stand, faced the jury. This was the moment that victims were waiting for, to finally hear the truth and remorse. We waited in these pews in anticipation, after all these years of lies that were made up, conspiracies, to finally hear the truth and some remorse in the defendant's words. Instead, lies, 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 never the truth. Right until the very end, in a desperate measure, the defense would want everyone to believe no one suffered. They just got tapped in the head with a hammer and died instantly. I can only say, wow. During this week and any time in the future, anyone with a moral compass and common sense could certainly see through these lies. Desperate lie after desperate lie led everyone to believe anything but the gruesome truth. When the defendant finally took the stand, what did the victims hear? More lies, coupled with not even a hint of remorse to the victims sitting right in front of you. I wonder how could this be possible, not to show remorse after telling a jury how you shot my brother in the back, put bags over heads, and used hammers to make hamburger out of human faces. For 1 second, I thought, you may say the word sorry. to the victims instead again, the choice was just more lies over remorse. So no remorse, no sorry, nothing. For this, you obviously are not a part of humanity and have no place in our society. Finally, our family also thinks about all the police, the first responders, medical examiners, and the jurors themselves, and the prosecutors, and you, Judge, who have endured viewing our loved ones piled up, smashed up, decomposed, and riddled with maggots. Our family, being the way that they are, hopes and prays that these public servants can put these images behind them and someday clear their heads of this horror scene. Our family also prays that someday we can wipe our tears and move on with our lives without this haunting us night after night after night after night.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You can state your name for the record.
I am Marie Brown Mulder. I am Gregory's sister, Maggie's sister-in-law, and Megan's aunt.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, Your Honor, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to read my victim's impact statement. For 3 years, their deaths have dominated our thoughts and our lives. I cannot adequately describe the pain, horror, and overwhelming despair experienced because of one person's actions. Of the loss of so many hopes, dreams, and expectations of so many people affected, including his own son. Gregory was our soft-hearted, internally giving brother. He was amazingly patient and unselfish. He became the man in the house at 16. During his summers, he would work 80 hours a week just to help make ends meet. He never complained, and never in his life did he feel sorry for himself, nor did he use it for an excuse. He met Maggie when he was about 19. Michael, Maggie's child from her first marriage, was about a year old. From the moment he held him, he was his son, unconditionally. Maggie and Greg went on to have 2 more children, Aaron and their princess Megan. He adored them, and he also adored his nieces and nephews, but the second love of his life was Tristan. My brother wrote on Facebook on their anniversary, "So I met a girl, and after we went on our first date, I told my mom I was going to marry her. She has been my best friend now for 34 years. She is a beautiful woman, caring mother, and a loving grandmother. A giving and understanding woman, even through rough times. Thank you, Maggie Brown, for the best years of my life, with many more to come. I will always love you and be there for you. Here's for another 34 years." Greg was what you would call a good person. He loved his children unconditionally, adored his wife. He had his deep faith in God. He loved hunting, fishing, the farm, and just being with friends and family. He worked very hard all his life and always did the right thing. He made you special, specifically loved, and cared for. He would be the first to help anyone, even strangers if he saw a need, shying away from recognition. From as a kid, when it snowed, shoveling out people on the way to school, to as an adult, he would get his tractor out and do the same for people he didn't even know. This is the person that you murdered. Maggie was quick-witted, straightforward, and still fragile at the same time. Always hopeful and would let nothing get in her way if she thought something was a good idea. She teased my brother unmercifully and loved him deeply. I can still hear her yelling, "Brown," or "old man." She was strong, capable, and loving. She taught me a lot about myself, tempered my anxieties as a new mom, and always had open arms during times of trouble. Maggie and I were stay-at-home moms. We raised our children a block from one another. Along with her sisters, we tag-teamed for grocery store runs, doctor appointments, or just folded laundry together. There was always a house full. Between Maggie, her sisters, and myself, I think we may have had 9 kids under 5 running around at any given time. This is a family that was in and still is in each other's lives daily. As new mothers, we shared the struggles, laughs, and ironies of life. Husbands that annoyed us, children needing stitches, bills that needed to be paid. Now I can't say remember when to her, but we will remember, and we will make sure her sons and grandchildren know. Megan Elizabeth. She was our stunning tomboy, a natural beauty, athletic, loving mother, and of course, Daddy's little girl. Everything she did for her son. She left a full ride at Penn State for track because of Tristan. She took jobs around Maggie and Gregory's schedule so Tristan would always have people around him that loved him. Tristan was the center of her world. She did not strive for a career, even though she could have easily. Instead, she focused on her son, his diet, schooling, at-home activities. They were always a priority to her. She would rather bake cupcakes with him than go out with her friends. She even journaled her son's progress daily, what he ate, his milestones, what she wanted to work on with him. My brother and Maggie also used these journals to capture his day. They were his caregivers, his world. Maggie and Greg have 2 sons, Michael and Aaron, that survived. Gregory has 4 brothers and sisters. Maggie has 6 brothers and sisters. Megan leaves behind 2 brothers, all these aunts and uncles, and 20 cousins, in a family where your cousins were raised to be your brother and sister, your best friends, your aunt and uncles, substitute parents at times. Imagine watching each one of these loved ones suffer, seeing your mother, your siblings, your children, nieces, nephews, Maggie's parents, her sisters and brothers, Megan's cousins, all in so much pain, feeling hopeless and helpless at the same time, not being able to talk about it for fear of hurting them. What could we possibly say to Michael and Aaron? They lost their father, mother, and sister. They lost most of their family because of this one selfish act. Maggie, Gregory, and Megan will never be able to see their children, grandchildren, be at weddings, or just talk to them on the phone. Another twisted effect because of your actions is how friends either say too much, nothing or all, or just avoid you because this is so devastating that they don't know what to say. Now imagine going through this with your entire support system destroyed at the worst time in your life. As for Tristan, Adam, you claim to love him. He's your whole world. Yet you took his world. You killed his 5'2", 52-year-old grandmother by bludgeoning her. And if that wasn't enough, you put over a bag over her head to make sure she wouldn't make a mess. You testified to this without feeling, as you did with all their murders. We imagine their pain every day. Adam, you took the life of Nick. You beat him at least 21 times with a hammer. I timed it. It took a long time. A lot of rage and effort. You took his life because he was there. But he was there because you threatened Megan. You then hunted down my brother and shot him in the back. To make sure he was dead, you shot him a second time. This man who took you into his home, who treated you fairly, and would only help, never hurt anyone. You coldly and without conscience killed him. We think about him every day, every minute, what his last thoughts were, and if he saw his daughter died. And all this you killed him in front of Tristan. Megan, the mother of your child, this alone shows how little you really care about Tristan. I absolutely believe this was in front of Tristan as she begged for both of their lives. I was at that house for 3 days after it was released to help pack up their personal belongings with their sons. It was over 100 degrees in there. We saw the blood splatter, the smears. We smelled the decomp. We saw Maggie's handprints on the walls while she struggled to get away. I straddled the hole in the closet when my brother died to get what was left of their belongings. At that time, Nick's sister arrived at the house and quietly asked to see where her brother died. What was left of my heart was broken. She sees the hole in Megan's floor, the bullet hole in the wall. He died with my family. Such an intimate event with a person I never met. The worst part was the east garage. I brought with me a bottle of holy water from where Gregory was baptized. Praying, I sprinkled over the very wet, very large pool of blood where their bodies were stacked in the garage. The detectives did try to spare us by putting paper over it, but it just bled through. On the walls were more blood, handprints, blood splatter. Yet you sit and testify how not sorry you were, but how you loaded them in the car. The house told the story. We could not escape what happened. What is worse is that you carelessly threw their bodies into the woods. For days we tried to get health, dental, surgical, skeletal records, anything to identify their bodies, reliving what little we knew with each conversation, begging the stranger on the other end to help us. None of this material helped. Their bodies so severely decomposed, rotting in the Florida sun, while the animals did their damage. This would not allow it. Not only did you murder them, you desecrated their bodies. You made it so that we would not be able to see our loved ones before we buried them. We couldn't even bring their bodies home. This was even taken from us. 3 years later, I still have nightmares. Just because Tristan has autism doesn't mean he doesn't know what happened and who is responsible for his mother and grandparents' death. In fact, in the 3 years since this nightmare, Tristan's ability to communicate has blossomed. He is able to tell the story as he experienced it in clear language. Tristan relives that trauma, and will forth for the rest of his life, just as we will. But Tristan will grow up within these wonderful families, remembering his mother, but terrified of you. He will grow up surrounded by people who adore him, care deeply for him, and would never hurt him. He will thrive, he will be happy, and he will be totally loved without you. Lastly, I would like to thank Your Honor, the court, the lawyers working on this case. I would especially like to thank the police officers, Detective Kugel, Kennedy, and the numerous professionals that brought us here today. I would also like to thank Deputy Kubler for helping us during this time.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Your name, please?
Amber Pyle.
Last name?
Pyle, P-Y-L-E.
I got it. All right, Amber.
Okay. So I am Amber Pyle, niece of Margaret Brown, my Auntie M, Gregory Brown, and cousin to my best friend Megan Brown. I did not write an impact statement for myself, nor will I. I just can't bring myself to spew my emotions out to you. You know how I feel about you because you know what you've done. I am writing solely the impact on what you've done to your son, Tristan. I once was Tristan's cousin, but I now legally am his sister. My mother, Rebecca Thomas, is now legally his mother. You should know this. You signed the papers to allow my mother to adopt him, and thank God for that. We, as in my entire family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, grandparents, we adore him. We get to watch him grow. We get to listen to his infectious laugh, and we get to see his bright, beautiful smile. We get to see his schoolworks, his projects that are posted up all around our house, in whatever spot he chooses, because he is our king. And we, in fact, will never do anything to hurt him or put him in harm's way. He is loved, he is special, and he has a family. We're trying to fill the void that he feels with the loss of his best friend, his mother, as well as his grandparents. I'm sure that you would like to think that with his autism, Tristan would be able to forget that what you've done, but I promise you he is not. He tells us daily what he saw and what he remembers. He tells us things along the line as, Daddy made a boo-boo on my mommy's head, and there was a lot of blood. And he tells us things like, and then he put them in a car and they were all gone, and he never saw them again. He tells us how scared he is of his father, that he is a bad man, and I tell him, Tristan, I agree. I hug him and I get to console him. You do not. He makes my mother promise him, when they say their prayers every night, that she will never leave or hurt him. He is terrified of you, Adam. So I hope when you put your pillow on the bed to sleep at night, you know that your son that you loved and tried to keep safe no longer does feel safe when he thinks about you. He in fact tells us he does not. He has told us on countless occasions that my daddy is in jail and he will never get out and he can never hurt me. Or tells us that my daddy made boo-boos on my feet when he made me walk for so long. That would be referring to when you made him run out of the house without shoes, causing large painful blisters on the bottom of his feet that my mom had to tend to once he got back to New Jersey. He tells us how thirsty and how hungry he was when he was with you. There's things that remind him of his other mommy, as he calls her, referring to his beautiful, loving mother, Megan. Certain foods, certain snacks, certain juices, he'll smile from ear to ear saying, my other mommy used to give me this. It breaks my heart that he has to refer to the person that he loved the most in this world and the person who loved him the most in this world as his other mommy. I saw Megan with Tristan more times than I can count, and I can only pray that one day I could be half of a mother as she was. There is not a single day that goes by in my life that I don't think about my family that left the world at the hands of a murderer. There is not a single day that goes by that your son does not think about his family that he lost at the hands of a murderer. He loves his mother, he loves his grandparents, and he loves us. He does not love you. He saw what you did, he heard what you did. You did not keep him safe, and you did not care about him. You stole his whole world. You ruined his whole life, and we are here to pick up the pieces. We love him. Thank you for the gift of Tristan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon. You can step up.
Hansel.
Your name, ma'am?
My name is Paula Rystrom.
Okay, Ms. Rystrom, what would you like to tell me?
I'd like to thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
No problem.
Nicholas Allen Leonard, my son, my only son, was born on the morning of April 29th, 1977. My only beautiful son. To lose our son this way has caused unimaginable pain to our family. The worst that can ever happen to a mother has happened to me. I grieve for my son's lost future, for Nick's baby sister, Danielle, Nick was her loving big brother, her protector, her best friend, her confidant, her closest ally, a sidekick like no other. Now her guardian angel. How I wish I could take away her pain. I can't take away that pain. The year after Nick's murder, he missed her wedding to Michael. He never saw the man he was so happy and relieved she had finally found, Michael Shoup, Nick's would-be brother-in-law, the man who so graciously would ultimately identify Nick's rotting corpse on that roadside to spare our family the pain of seeing our son in death, a son-in-law we are eternally grateful to have. Michael and Danielle will never have an opportunity to be an aunt or uncle to Nick's children because you took that away from him. Or have him as an uncle to theirs. Nicholas never got that chance to experience fatherhood. I promise you, he would have been the best father given the chance. I grieve for Nick's father, Dan Leonard, who taught him to succeed in his life by using his hands and his heart to bring beauty to this ugly world. A father who taught Nick to take pride in his work. The father whose life was saved several years ago by Nicholas when he suffered his heart attack, and thankful Nick was close by to restore his life that day. The father Nick wanted to be just like. The father who wasn't supposed to survive his son. I grieve for Nick's grandparents, of which my father recently joined Nick's paternal grandparents in his heavenly home. My father, who struggled daily to remain healthy with one kidney he was born with in constant failure, to which Nicholas offered his own to extend his grandfather's life, died with a broken heart over his first grandson's murder, an only murdered relative in our family, never to see justice here on earth in his lifetime. And for my mother, the woman who called him Nicky Pickles. Nick was her favorite, her first grandson, who always made her laugh. This grandmother, still living in Wisconsin, in the care of Nick's Uncle Marty, my brother Jonathan Martin Rystrom, battling the thrones of dementia that robbed her of her memories. My mother was told that day they found the bodies. We lost Nick with his girlfriend and her parents, to which my mother said through her tears, "That sounds like it was a horrible car wreck. We had to leave it at that." My mother was never told of the details of Nick's death. It breaks our hearts when in her unlucid moments she asks, "How's my Nicky and Dano doing?" We always tell her, "Fine, Mom, really, really good." We must lie to her so we don't upset the routine that sustains her life. I grieve her as aunts, uncles, and heartbroken cousins whose lives are forever shattered by this deeply painful, senseless, evil murder spree. I grieve for Nick's countless friends and our friends, our lifelines who loved him dearly, those who Nick would drop everything on a call for help. I grieve for the Hudson community, Nick's home, and home to Nick's employees and his business associates he worked for and with. I grieve for Nick's customers who made it a point to come to my home upon his death to tell us how saddened they were, to say how his hands had touched their homes. Nick was so much more to them than just a carpenter, a handyman. He was a trusted friend who treated their homes as his own, a son they would proudly call their own. I grieve for the many veterans Nicholas assisted with the basic needs of life, to help them with a ride to the VA for medical appointments they could no longer get picked up for. or those that just needed to get out of the cold for a night, who Nick provided a hot meal, a warm shower, a good night's rest, while Nick laundered their clothing or gave them his own when necessary. To honor them was a tribute to his Grandpa Leonard's military service, to Nick's elderly neighbors, Joni, Jack, and Ralph. Ralph, you heard from his son, Robert. They counted on Nick to help repair their homes when they couldn't themselves, or run to the store, tend to the clothes, to the chores they no longer could handle. Nick provided hot home-cooked meals or just a jar of salsa made with love from his own hands, from a vegetable garden he tended to. Nicholas took pride in sharing and giving of himself to those in need, a hero to many. And lastly, the many women who came to me after Nick was murdered to share their stories of how Nicholas fearlessly rescued them from their own violent situations. Nicholas went the extra mile to help them and their children by opening his home while finding affordable housing, furnishings, food, and toys. Nick made sure they had everything needed to sustain, free of their abusers. This was my loving son, my caring child, nurturing, honorable, compassionate, deeply respected, and very much loved son. He didn't deserve to be brutally broken, bludgeoned to death, and dragged like trash, hidden on the roadside with the woman Nicholas described as the love of his life, Megan, along with her parents. Over dinner on what I would find out later was the eve of Nick's death, he told me, "Megan is one amazing woman, Mom, and you will love her and her family when you meet them." That day never came. The day I was informed of his death, the body stacked to rot in the elements for a week, with the animals eating and tearing at his open, maggot-infested, wounded flesh, a hole was blown through my heart. My world darkened in that moment. The visioning of circling vultures above your son's rotting corpse does irreparable damage to a parent's psyche, a vision forever embedded in my mind. I continue to have constant nightmares of my son begging for his life, calling out to me for help as his skull is cracking open with each blow to his head. I blame myself for not knowing he was in danger. I am in constant pain, wondering if he died instantly or endured lingering torture. The what-ifs slowly kill me. My brother, Nick's uncle, once asked, what if I had done something differently to change the course of his life? He wishes he could have brought him to Wisconsin to work with him. We all wish that now. I touch his face every day on the photo that sits above my home office desk. I hold his ashes in my hands like I did when he was a baby. I cry constantly. I have the last shirt I ever saw on him sealed in a bag, tucked away in a box. I take out when I need him close to me, then quickly return it to preserve his scent as long as possible. On that awful day I was told of my son's murder, I collapsed on a bathroom floor, wailing and shaking as I began to vomit until my throat, mouth, and tongue were burned so badly it took weeks to heal. I experienced that again when you took the stand. My daughter coming to my aid to ensure I wouldn't take my own life that day. My life as I had known it was over in that moment. I will forever be grateful for my surviving child, Danielle, and my fiancé, Ed, for just holding me for weeks, comforting me, to help me get back on my feet, no matter how unsteady they made that possible for me. Then came the memorial for Nick. I will never understand how I gathered the strength to eulogize my son at his celebration of life service in front of 700 of our closest friends. In immense heartbreak, I survived yet another painful hurdle. another layer of unnatural grief as I prepared to attend the services in New Jersey for Megan, Gregory, and Margaret Brown. A new wave of grief for the Browns, Thomases, and Monahan families took hold. Just when I thought I couldn't endure any more pain, my heart and soul shattered all over again for Megan's brothers, Margaret and Gregory's surviving sons, and all their families. My pain was no longer just for the loss of my own son, Nick. We now shared in our losses and became the family of faith that we are today. Our darkest moments, our angels blessed us. Maggie's sons each were blessed with a baby. Gregory Aaron Brown and Jamie's beautiful baby boy Ryland came into the world on